In the digital age, it seems that we're constantly under the microscope of social media. We're all posting constant updates on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. And for influencers, there isn't a part of their reality that they won't share. If you're not familiar with what live streaming is, it's slightly different than just streaming a video over the internet. With your normal streaming services, you're able to download a file and then watch. With live streaming, it's supposed to be happening in real time, but not always. Usually these technologies only have a few second delays, allowing people to interact in real time. But with the advancement of technology, there's always the question of morality. Has technology advanced beyond our own morality? These particular discussions are now being had around the advancement of AI technologies. And they are particularly important in this case, because it seems our advancement in technology almost helped a killer get away with a devastating crime. That's right. In this haunting case, a possible killer attempts to use a live stream to try and cover up his sinister acts. Stephen McCullagh was a 32-year-old Irishman who lived in Woodland Gardens, Lisburn, Ireland. He appeared to be like any other gamer in the gaming community. He loved to play Robot Combat on his YouTube channel under the name VoteSaxon07, and he loved to live stream his games for his audience, but soon his image would be shattered forever. Natalie McNally was a wonderful 32-year-old woman, and according to her family and close friends, she always highlighted equality and fairness, and always acted to further causes she regarded as important. Professionally, she was an advocate for LGBTQ+ issues and backed women's rights. She had a wonderful personality and was described as being very lovely and upbeat. Natalie and Stephen began a relationship in August 2022. At first, things seemed like any other new couple. Then Natalie got pregnant and seemingly things changed. On December 18th, 2022, the night started off like any other night. Natalie had been watching football at her parents' home. Stephen had texted her around 5:57. "Right, I'm away to stream the night away. Wish me luck." What Stephen meant was that he was about to start an online live stream. And that night, Stephen was engaged with a live stream of the computer game Grand Theft Auto beginning around 6 p.m., meaning he was going to be at his computer with an audience watching him play a game. So he would have lots of witnesses watching him play the game, and it would virtually be impossible for Stephen to be anywhere else except playing the computer game, like he said. Meanwhile, back at her parents' house, Natalie decided to finally drive home around 7 p.m., which is confirmed by a nearby CCTV that showed Natalie arriving at her home around 7 p.m. So by the looks of it, there was nothing out of the ordinary, but that would all change. Sometime later, Natalie's neighbors heard a horrifying sound. They claimed that they heard a scream. So what happened to Natalie? Natalie was supposed to have been home alone, since Stephen was engaged with a live stream on his computer. And if Stephen was busy, who could have made Natalie scream? Meanwhile, back at Stephen's house, he was having a little glitch during his live stream and had to repeatedly tell his viewers that he could not respond to comments or interact with them due to technical issues. That's strange, and would become a big point of interest for investigators later. One of the main reasons to host a live stream is for the live interactions with the audience, so the audience can experience the game with you in real time. Unlike a pre-recorded game, where there can be no live interaction. Despite the technical problems, Stephen was enjoying himself on his live stream for almost 6 hours. But back at Natalie's house, things had taken a deadly turn. As reports would later state that night, Natalie was stabbed to death in her home. The attacker killed both her and her unborn baby, Dean. The following day, Stephen went to Natalie's home, and what he would find would shock him. Stephen was shocked to discover Natalie's body. Stephen immediately called the emergency services. It was quickly established that Natalie had suffered compression to the neck, stab wounds to the neck, and head injuries from a blunt instrument. During an investigator's report, they said that Natalie had died a violent death, having been stabbed a number of times, and there were signs of defensive injuries. While investigators were combing the scene of the crime, they found a knife. But investigators did not find the blunt instrument that had also been used. A truly horrific crime committed on an expectant mother. Detectives also seized Natalie's car for further investigation. The vehicle was taken from an address in the Lisburn and Castlereagh area. Additionally, officers carried out house-to-house inquiries in the Lisburn area on Saturday. Police would go on to look at CCTV footage, eyewitness accounts, and some other strange technologies to hunt down a suspect. With few suspects, investigators' attention turned to Stephen. He was arrested on December 19, 2022. But Stephen was subsequently released due to his tight alibi. As you remember, Stephen had been on a 6-hour live stream the night of Natalie's murder, and therefore could not be a suspect. Therefore, Stephen was discounted as a suspect on December 24, 2022. But then who else could have a motive to want to harm poor Natalie? Who else could have wanted to hurt her? The whole case didn't make sense, and eventually the investigation turned back towards Stephen when a shocking discovery was made. What the police discovered is that the live stream Stephen claimed to be on might have been pre-recorded, which would explain why he couldn't interact with any of his audience during the supposed live stream, but it does leave a lot of unanswered questions. If Stephen's live stream was pre-recorded, then why lie to Natalie about it being re-recorded? What could he have been trying to hide from her? And furthermore, if Stephen wasn't on a live stream during the time of Natalie's death, then where was he? Well, new evidence was about to come out that would change the course of this case forever. District Judge Rosie Waters said she was told that Stephen denies involvement in Natalie McNally's murder, but he has conceded in a police interview that the purported live stream was pre-recorded by him days earlier. Judge Rosie Waters relayed that at the conclusion of the interview process last night or early this morning, after consultation with his legal representative, Stephen has given us a written statement, essentially, and in that written statement, he has acceded that the live stream was not live and was in fact recorded by him on the 13th into the 14th of December, and that he had streamed it on the night of Sunday the 18th. A huge break in the case, and a huge setback for Stephen's airtight alibi. But yes, Stephen eventually admitted that he was in fact not live streaming on the night of Natalie's death. But he claimed that while he was not live streaming, he was at home having a drink. Stephen said that he had a drink at home and then fell asleep at his house. But investigators were not convinced. It doesn't make sense that Stephen would first lie about the live stream being live, and that the live stream that happened to be pre-recorded would coincide with the death of his partner, Natalie. It all felt a little too convenient for Stephen. So investigators dug a little deeper into Stephen's whereabouts during the night of Natalie's murder. And using a combination of CCTV evidence, investigators were able to track Stephen on the night of his supposed live stream all the way from his house to Natalie's house in Lisburn, Ireland. On top of the CCTV evidence, investigators also found evidence from the bus that Stephen boarded to get to Natalie's home, as well as an account from a taxi driver who drove Stephen back to his home after the time of Natalie's death. Some pretty incriminating footage. So while Stephen was hoping to fake his live stream from his computer to cover up a possible murder, another set of cameras were live streaming his whereabouts without him ever knowing. Further evidence on the CCTV footage from the bus Stephen rode to get to Natalie's house showed Stephen wearing a yellow glove underneath a black glove while giving change to the bus driver. That's bizarre. Why wear two sets of gloves? Unless you were wearing cleaning gloves under your regular gloves because you plan to commit a crime. And it seems that might have been the case, because at Natalie's crime scene, there was trace evidence of cleaning gloves on a stain of blood at Natalie McNally's murder scene. With so much evidence stacking up against him, Stephen was arrested a second time and was scheduled for a further proceeding in court on February 24, 2023. During Stephen's hearing, detectives revealed that they found out that Stephen works in the local media industry, and therefore has extensive knowledge about gadgets and tools in the media space. And it turns out Stephen was not only using live stream technology, but also cell phone technology to get away with murder. It turns out that Stephen had purposefully left his cell phone at Natalie's parents' house in an attempt to record their conversations. It's suspected that Stephen was trying to gauge if Natalie's parents suspected him of murder. But with the fake live stream, the CCTV footage, the evidence at the crime scene, and an attempt to spy on Natalie's family, things are not looking good for Stephen. Steven's lawyers defended Steven by arguing that the details of the live stream were not a strong basis for suspecting him of Natalie's murder. Steven was in the hearing but did not speak, which was noted by several outlets. A detective on the case weighed in and said that the yellow glove would be consistent with the trace of marigold cleaning glove on a stain of Natalie's blood at the crime scene. When making a bail application, the defense lawyer challenged the basis on which the police had connected the defendant to the charge and said essentially what the evidence seems to all hang on is that the man did not live stream when he said he live streamed. Steven's defense went on to say that his client acknowledged in his statement that the footage was pre-recorded, but that he had been drinking and watched it go out live online. But the prosecution told the court that at 7:09 p.m., when the live stream was supposed to be in progress, a man that matched Steven's description was filmed on CCTV 2 miles from Steven's Lisburn address, walking towards a bus stop in Dunmurry. This man that matched Steven's description was wearing a hood, snood or scarf, and gloves, and carrying a shopping bag. This same man is the man that traveled to Lurgan by bus, which is where Natalie's house was located. The prosecution went on to argue that the man's height and build are consistent with those of Steven. It was also stated that in one section of CCTV gathered on the bus, a portion of the man's eyes and nose area are visible, which they argued also matched Steven's features. The defense then brought up that it was alleged that the same man on the bus got off in Lurgan, with CCTV showing him walking towards Silverwood Green. The prosecution was quick to add that the man initially walks past Silverwood Green. In other words, he walked past Natalie's house. The prosecution argued this would allow him to walk past Natalie's house and to see if the car was there and the lights on. Then the prosecution said that the same man came back a few moments later at 8:52 p.m. and then entered Natalie's house. And then around 9 p.m. is when Natalie's neighbors reported hearing a woman scream. If Steven is confirmed to be this man, it would be pretty hard to not believe he didn't have something to do with Natalie's murder. The prosecution went on to say that this same man was then seen leaving the area at 9:31 p.m., having changed his clothes. That seems suspicious as well. If it wasn't Steven, where would this suspect get a change of clothes? Then the man is seen walking to Carnegie Street in Lurgan, where he then gets into a taxi. And the prosecution told the court that the taxi driver later positively identified Steven in a Viper video identification parade electronic recording. Wow, that seems like pretty strong evidence against Steven. Although Steven's defense lawyer stressed to the court that the identification of Steven by the taxi driver came after Steven's image had appeared in the media relating to the case. The court then heard the man in the taxi then traveled to Steven's Lisburn home. Again, it seems hard to believe that a random man would travel from Steven's house to Natalie's house and back again. To add to the account, the prosecution said that when the man got out of the taxi, he went into the grounds of the house before coming back out to pay the driver and collect his bags from the vehicle. Then the taxi driver explained to the court that the man threw his bags over the hedge. And to further draw the connection between Steven and this man, the court heard that 3 minutes later at 11:16 p.m., Steven's mobile phone was activated for the first time since 5:57 p.m. that night. Wow. After hearing all that, it's hard not to suspect that Steven was not in some way connected to what happened to Natalie. The court then heard that at 12:17 a.m. the following morning, more CCTV footage showed Steven standing at the front of the house that the taxi dropped the man off at, putting bins out. Steven was not wearing the same clothes as the man who arrived at the house, but it is also not outside the realm of possibility that he just changed his clothes. And that's what the prosecution alleged, that Steven purchased, changed, and disposed of the clothes that he had worn the night before. In addition to all the other overwhelming evidence, there was an account that Steven had seen text messages between Natalie and an old partner days before the murder took place. This could give Steven a clear motive if it is proven to be true. To summarize, if the prosecution is right and they find Steven guilty, that would mean that he would have faked a live stream, then taken a bus to Natalie's house, murdered her, then taken a taxi back to his house after the murder while being caught on camera by eyewitnesses and cell phone data technology. Natalie's parents and brothers were in court as this evidence was outlined, which must have been so hard to sit and overhear the multiple accounts that might have linked Stephen to Natalie's murder. Meanwhile, Stephen watched proceedings via video link from a police custody suite. He did not speak at any stage in the proceedings. This court appearance came after more than 1,000 people gathered at a rally in her memory at Lurgan Park on Saturday in honor of Natalie. The rally was organized by the National Women's Council, and there were also a number of politicians that were in attendance, including Sinn Féin Stormont leader Michelle O'Neill. Many of those in attendance carried placards reading "Justice for Natalie," and "She was only at home," while a number wore pink or blue items of clothing in memory of the mother-to-be. Brendan, Natalie's brother, spoke at the rally and said that his sister was an inspiration to other women. In court, the judge refused to offer bail to Stephen, but said he could apply for bail at the High Court. In common law countries, mainly those in the former British Empire, the High Court is often the superior trial court and has plenary original jurisdiction, with lower courts, such as district courts or magistrates' courts, having limited jurisdiction. Often the High Court tries the most serious offenses such as murder, rape, and terrorism. So likely, Stephen's case was first heard by a district court and is now being turned over to the High Court. Additionally, a High Court may serve as an intermediate appellate body before appeal to a Supreme or Constitutional Court. Some jurisdictions, especially federations, may have multiple high courts, each with jurisdiction over a particular region. This is still an ongoing case, and Stephen's official trial is not likely to take place for a number of months, a court has heard. But Stephen still remains in custody after being charged with Natalie's murder. Stephen has continued to deny murdering his then partner, who was 15 weeks pregnant with his child. The case was briefly mentioned at Craigavon Magistrates Court on March 24, 2023. The prosecutor asked for a further 4 weeks, saying the prosecution file will not be due for some time. Pressed by District Judge Bernie Kelly to provide a date for when the file will be ready, the prosecutor said it will probably be some months away. The judge said she intends to keep an eye on progress with the file. The case is next due to be mentioned on April 21st, when the prosecution is expected to give a date for when the file will be ready. In the meantime, several news outlets have covered the story because of the unique and shocking nature of the crime and the bizarre use of technology to try and hide a murder. Some reports about the case are claiming that Stephen even left hidden messages about Natalie's death staged in the gaming live stream. If that's true, then those pieces of evidence will most definitely be used against Stephen when his trial date is finally set. This case is another reminder that domestic violence can happen to anyone, regardless of their social status or economic background. Domestic violence is an issue that does not discriminate. It affects all people, regardless of race, gender identity, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic status. It affects children, our friends, and even our pets. To understand relationship abuse, we must recognize that it's more than physical violence. Ending the harm and stigma of domestic violence requires a nuanced understanding of the behaviors that define it, as well as examples of healthy relationships to inform your decisions and interactions moving forward. Domestic violence, also referred to as intimate partner violence, dating abuse, or relationship abuse, is a pattern of behaviors used by one partner to maintain power and control over another partner in an intimate relationship. Domestic violence doesn't discriminate. People of any race, age, gender, sexuality, religion, education level, or economic status can be a victim or perpetrator of domestic violence. That includes behaviors that physically harm, intimidate, manipulate, or control a partner, or otherwise force them to behave in ways they don't want to, including through physical violence, threats, emotional abuse, or financial control. There are multiple types of abuse that are usually present at the same time in abusive situations, and it's essential to understand how these behaviors interact so you know what to look for. When we know what a relationship looks like and means, we can then take steps to get help for ourselves, as well as better support others who are experiencing abuse. There are advocates that are available 24/7 by phone or live chat to help discuss your situation and help you determine if your relationship might be abusive. If you are in an abusive relationship, there is help available. To contact the National Domestic Abuse Hotline, call 1-800-799-7233. Thank you so much for watching Killer Bites. I'm Brandy, and we'll see you next time.